G'day to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. I'm just here at work on a Saturday. It's an autumn morning. As you can see, the sun is out and it is an absolutely beautiful autumn day here in Sydney town. And I thought I'd take a little time out on my lunch break to deliver yet another vlog on this wonderful YouTube channel that I have named Jim's 5am Club. Today's vlog, today's video episode is numbered 1502, and I will continue to add episodes to this channel as long as there are books and book summaries for me to be able to read, mull over, identify a few key points and present. The book that I have today is entitled A Brief History of Everyone Who Ever Lived, a book written by an author named Adam Rutherford. And it's a book here where we look into our own history based on the way our genes evolved and changed over time. I think it's safe to say, it's safe to remind ourselves that each and every person is different. We are all unique. We are all a unique version of us.
Hold down the way in, guys.
And I'll just turn that radio down just to make it a little bit easier. So we're all unique. We're a unique version. We're a one of a kind. Nobody who has ever lived is like us in any way, shape or form. Even if we were an identical twin, our twin would not be like us. Because we're all unique, we're all shaped, we're all defined by our experiences, our slithers of reality, our thoughts, and all of the other things that come into our lives. And it's safe to say that everybody's had a different past. Everybody will most certainly live a different past. We will all have a different present. I am here, you are somewhere else, and even if you were here with me, joined at the hip, we would be experiencing something completely different. We could be looking in different directions, we could have different thoughts, we could have different things that we're obsessing on and things that are preoccupying our minds, and hence our interpretation of where we are and what we are doing and what it means to us will be completely different to other people. The other thing that the author here talks about is our genetic makeup, and our genes have evolved over time. Now, when we're created, we take part of our genetic material from our biological father and part of it from our biological mother, and depending on which of those are dominant will help us develop in a way based on those building blocks that we have. And those building blocks will help us in our life, but also will enable us to live a different sort of life from everybody else. Not everybody is designed to be an athlete, because some people have different sized organs. Some person may have a bigger heart or bigger lungs. or different types of muscles, longer legs, longer limbs, a different sort of mental capacity. There are lots and lots of different combinations of gifts that we have. We are all created differently, similar in many ways, but different in many ways. And depending on the lifestyle that we have, the things that we do, that too will also help us develop our physicality and our genetic building blocks. Because the more you do in a particular area, the more you're going to help shape certain muscles and certain aspects of both your physical and your mental capacity. The author here says that the genes can change over time, and human culture and the environment can also affect our genes, as they have done for our ancient ancestors. The author here gives us an example. Most adults are actually lactose intolerant, because the enzyme responsible for breaking down lactose is coded into our genes and usually disappears when we become adults. However, along the way, over the years, something happened, and in Europe, a mutation occurred, which resulted in this enzyme staying throughout our adult life. And that's why Europeans developed a practice of dairy farming, creating cheeses, yogurts, milks, and all of those products and byproducts. So it's something that happened along the way that changed the way we're able to live our lives and able to process the aspects of our lives as well. Another example that the author talks about here is that the people who migrated from Africa to Europe, when they first migrated, their skin was darker. But with time, their skin got lighter because of the European environment, the lack of harsh sunlight and conditions. All of those things were able to help change the skin colour, the skin tone, based on the environment rather than the genes. The genes are in a constant dance with the environment to try and create the best combination to help us along our way. Now, if we look back in the past there, you've got examples of horses. Farlap, from what legend says, had a heart which was much bigger than other horses, and that increased heart size enabled the horse to be able to oxygenate and pump blood round to its organs, and hence be fitter and stronger than other animals. And that's why, I guess, in the horse racing industry, you've got a whole industry there based on breeding, where you've got sires, you've got dams, and you've got people who experiment combining the genes of one particular horse family to another horse family, trying to create the perfect running machine, the perfect horse. We do it with flowers, we do it with farming, we're doing it all over the place now, where we're taking the genetic material and experimenting with it to try and deliver a better outcome. The second point that the author makes, which is quite remarkable, I didn't quite realise this, but it makes sense from a mathematical perspective. And this is where he says that royalty, royal blood, is in the family tree of everyone on earth. Statistically, it is common and easy to find a common ancestor. All you need to do is go back just 600 years, because in Europe, for example, there weren't all that many Europeans alive in the 9th century. And this is quite remarkable as well. One of the things about royalty was that they were able, because of their position, because of their egos, they're able to create big families, big dynasties, and have lots of children, because A, they could afford to have lots of children, and B, they were deemed by society to be worthy of having lots of offspring, because they were the epitome of class and society in the era that they were living. Another example here is where Charlemagne, who fathered 18 children, is basically on every tree of Europeans, every family tree of Europeans alive today. Genghis Khan, who was renowned for having lots of children and lots of mistresses, is a common ancestor to all Asian family trees. And Nefertiti is the same for all Africans. So when we go back in time, even if you don't look at it from a biblical perspective of Adam and Eve, if you just go back 600 years, the author here is saying that most people have a common ancestor, and that common ancestor leads to blue blood, royal blood in a royal family. So how do we know all this? This is quite interesting and quite revealing, actually. I love these sorts of topics, because these sorts of topics are really important for people who have mental issues or who feel displaced in society, people who are suicidal, who think that they're not worthy, they're not, I guess not worthy is probably the best way of describing it. To be able to share with them that they have blue blood, that back in the time, they look back into their family tree, they may come, or they most probably come, from royal family. They have lots of people in their in the linkage of their family. And I often think, and I look back over my life, and I'm saying that at the end of the day, I am a continuation from way back when. There's this huge chain that comes before me, where a man and a woman came together, hopefully in marriage, but not necessarily in marriage, but a man, a biological man and a biological woman came together and had a family, had a son or a daughter. And I am the output of either the son that they may have had or the daughter that they may have had, as a man and a woman come together and form a child. And I don't quite know who the first Christian convert was to my family. But all I know is I am a continuation of that. I am an ambassador. I am a representative of them. And if we go back thousands of years, we all have common ancestors all the way back to Adam and Eve, for those who are Christian and for those who have a biblical sort of background. So what this author is saying is that we know and understand a lot more about the human genome after deciphering it in the year 2000. It's only been 23 years since science has been able to uncover, to decipher the human genome and to look deeply and scientifically into how we're made up and how all those moving parts come together and work. It took 8 years to decipher the human genome, and there are 3 billion letters of human genetic code which sit within that code. We as humans are defined by 20,000 genes. But interestingly enough, I had a laugh at this. Interestingly enough, a banana has more genes than what a human has. So when people call you a banana, it's actually potentially a compliment. And what you should do as a comeback is to say, well, thank you, because a banana has more genes than what a human has. And thanks for letting me know that I am that superior. The interesting thing as well that we've been able to learn is that most DNA serves no purpose. Most DNA is junk DNA, and only about 2% of the DNA that we have is actually readable and usable. But most importantly of all, the author is able to let us know here that our genes interact with other genes in very, very complicated ways. And these genes, based on the way they interact, play a huge role in, as I mentioned before, our physicality, our mental abilities, our endurance, our learning capabilities, our disease fighting capabilities, or our longevity. They all play a part. So one thing is to live a healthy and a good life, to try and make the most of the building blocks that we have. And the other thing is to acknowledge and accept the building blocks that we have received from our biological parents, and to know that there are things that are going to happen in our lives that we have no control over. Some people have a higher propensity to be addicted to substances, or to events, or to depression, or to the way they think, or the way they see the world. And a lot of that, according to this author, goes back to our building blocks, our abilities to be able to do things and to see things, to feel things, and to access and make sense of the world through our 5 senses. So don't blame your parents, don't blame the environment. Sometimes, we have a fate, and that fate in some ways is determined by our makeup, our genetic makeup. Now, we can override our genetic makeup by doing extra work, by eating better foods, by exercising, by having positive thoughts, by reading, by being educated, by hanging out with good people. All of those things play a part. But as I said before, we also need to understand that some of us have advantages in certain areas and others have advantages in other areas, just like we have disadvantages in similar areas or different areas. All of that happens without us being able to control, I guess is the best way of putting it, because it's part of our genetic makeup. It gives us a propensity. It doesn't guarantee that because your father was a educated person, or just because your parents were sports people, or just because, you know, certain people in your family had certain diseases, it doesn't mean that that's going to happen to you. But what we need to do is to, as I said before, appreciate, accept and acknowledge that our genes play an important part, a big part in our lives, and to try and figure out how to go about it and to use those building blocks. The bottom line, I guess, is, before I finish, is that we all are made in the image of God, not physically, but from a virtue perspective. We all have elements of God's virtues, but we have them in different volumes, and it's up to each and every one of us to try and figure out how to use those virtues to create a recipe for success, so that we can make the most of the life that we have. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club, where we've got some ladies here putting together a dance video, which is quite interesting. Well done to them. Wishing everybody a happy Saturday, and I look forward to coming to you again from a different place with a different message of empowerment, where we can learn from all the OPE and take it to the next level. Take care, everybody. Yassas, and bye for now.